Today I'm going to read you The Man on the Dock. This is from the second book from the Scariest Stories You've Ever Heard, and this one was actually requested by a viewer who knows these stories quite well and remembers them. The Man on the Dock. Craig and Mark left their bikes at the bait store stops and went in to borrow one of Mr. Easom's canoes. "We just want to use it for the morning, Mr. Easom. We have to be back by 2 o'clock for swim team practice," said Craig. "Okay, boys, but be careful of the currents out there. The water is a little high after all this rain," Mr. Easom warned, "but the fishing should be great." Craig and Mark loaded the boat with their gear and bait. They noticed a strange man standing near the dock. He waved them over. Mark put down his bait pail and started to go over to the man, but Craig stopped him. "What are you doing? We don't know that guy," Craig said. "We don't have time to hang around here and talk to him and still get back in time for practice. And besides," Craig said, "he looks kind of weird." Mark and Craig looked at the man. He was wearing a muddy, old white shirt that stuck to his skin as if it were wet. The collar was buttoned up around his neck in spite of the heat of the morning. When the man saw the boys looking at him, he motioned to them again. "But maybe he's from around here and knows a good place to fish," Mark said. "Come on, let's go talk to him." "Well, all right," Craig gave in, "but let's hurry." "Hey," Mark said as he approached the man. "Hello," answered the man in a thin voice. "Where are you boys going fishing?" he asked. "Oh, probably at Bridger's branch," Mark said. "We're kind of new in town." "I see," said the man, looking at the boys. "You're new in town, are you?" "Yeah. Have you been out fishing already this morning?" Craig asked. He wanted to ask the man if he fell in the lake, but decided not to. "Yes, that's right," the man said. "I was out in the lake with my friends. We haven't caught anything yet, but I think we will soon. I think our luck is turning." "Well, where's the best place to fish?" Craig asked. "Where are you and your friends fishing?" Craig eyed the man carefully. He seemed awfully thin and bony, and his face was pale. Craig wondered how anyone could be so pale at the end of the summer. "We're fishing over near the flooded locust grove," the man said in his thin voice. "It's on the other side of the lake. That's where my friends and I are. There are lots of fish over there, big ones too. I'll give you directions how to get there." "Hey, Craig, let's try it," Mark said, turning toward his friend. "We've never been to that part of the lake. Craig?" But Craig was already walking back toward the boat. "Come on, Mark," Craig said impatiently. "Let's get going. We don't have time to talk." And under his breath he added, "especially to some weirdo." "Listen," said Mark. "You go get the boat ready, and I'll ask this guy more about his good place to fish. I'll be there in a minute." After a few minutes, Mark joined Craig at the boat. "Craig, that man said he caught a 12-inch bass near that flooded grove. Come on, let's go over there." Okay," answered Craig. "I don't care where we fish. Let's just get going so we don't have to turn around and come right back." As the boys paddled away from the dock, they looked back at the old man. He was waving at them. They heard his thin voice floating over the water to them. "Good luck, boys," the old man called to them. "I know you'll have good luck." It took the boys about half an hour to reach the secluded cove where the old man said they would have good luck. The opening to the cove was partly hidden by overgrown trees and bushes, but the old man's directions had been perfect, and Mark was able to find it. Craig said. "I guess this does look like a pretty good place after all. There could be a lot of fish in here." "See, I told you we were right to listen to that guy," said Mark. "He just looked like he spent a lot of time on the lake. He knew what he was talking about." The boys paddled under the overhanging branches into the cove. The trees hanging over the water almost blocked the sky. "It's kind of dark in here," said Mark. "The fish will be coming to the surface. I have a feeling this is going to be our lucky day." The surface of the water was scattered with tree limbs and old rotting boards. Dead tree branches stuck out of the water like bony hands reaching up toward the cloudy sky. The boys threw in their lines and fished in the gloomy spot about an hour. They caught nothing. "Maybe that guy's tip wasn't so great after all," Craig said. "Let's try one more cast," said Mark. "I can't believe this place isn't jumping with fish. It looks perfect." After a few minutes, Mark's line snapped tight in the water and something tugged hard below the murky surface of the cove. "All right, I finally got a bite," Mark shouted. He was so excited that he stood up suddenly in the canoe. He was trying to hold on to that line, but the fish on the end was pulling away quickly. Craig yelled, "Mark, sit down, you're rocking the boat." But his warning was too late. Mark was pulled right into the dark water of the lake. He popped up a few seconds later. "It's not a fish at all, Craig," he said, disappointed. "It looks like my line's caught in a big box or something. I'll unhook it." Craig shouted at him to just leave it there, but Mark had already dived under the water. When the water's surface began to ripple and churn, Craig expected Mark to pop back up near the canoe any second, but when Mark did not come up, Craig began to get worried. He reached his hand over the side into the water, hoping Mark could see his hand. The water was icy cold. "How can the water be so cold?" thought Craig. "It's the middle of August." As he clutched the side of the canoe, Craig was suddenly very afraid. Something was wrong, really wrong. His mind went back to the strange man on the dock. He shivered to think of the man's thin voice and strange, pale appearance. "Mark! Mark!" called Craig hysterically. The only sound was the echo of his voice and the dark water slapping against the black branches. Craig didn't know what to do. Mark had been under the water for about 5 minutes, and Mark was a better swimmer than Craig was. If Mark couldn't get free, what could he do? If Craig dove in, he might get caught too. He grabbed quickly at the paddles and began to back the canoe out of the snarl of branches and into open water. He rowed as hard as he could, but it seemed like he wasn't getting anywhere. It almost seemed like something was holding the canoe in the dark cove. With a powerful push against a fallen tree, he paddled out of the cove into the main part of the lake. Turning back to take a final look for his friend, Craig saw something floating on the surface of the water. It was Mark's baseball cap. With a scream, Craig started paddling as fast as he could across the lake toward the dock. Back at the dock, Mr. Esom called the police immediately. When they arrived, they took out a map of the lake so Craig could show them exactly where Mark had disappeared. "It's the flooded locust grove," Craig said frantically, pointing to the map. "A man on the dock told us about it. He said he and his friends had caught lots of fish over there." Mr. Esom's face turned white. "A man on the dock told you that? And he told you to fish there?" "Yes," Craig said. "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" "Was it an old man with wet clothes and a strange thin voice?" asked the oldest policeman. "Yeah," answered Craig, "that's him. He looked like he's been around this lake for a long time." The policeman looked at Mr. Esom. "He probably has," said the policeman. Mr. Esom shook his head. "Craig, 30 years ago, that area where you were fishing was flooded to make the lake larger," he explained. "A few days after the water had covered up the land, people started to notice big boxes floating in the water." "We saw boards, but I still don't understand," Craig said. "What does that have to do with Mark?" "The area that was flooded was the old prison graveyard," explained the policeman. "It's where they buried the murderers who were hanged. People around here call it Dead Man's Cove, and they say the boards over there are from the hanged men's coffins." "And you didn't know because you're new here," said Mr. Esom sadly. "Mark is the 7th person in 30 years to disappear there," said the policeman. "We've never found any of the bodies, and each time it happened, the survivors said an old man told them to go fishing in the cove." "But what about the old man?" Craig asked. "Why don't you arrest him?" The policeman sighed and touched Craig's arm. "Because the man on the dock bears a very strong resemblance to old William Marlf, a murderer who was hanged and buried there 60 years ago." Why don't they post a sign saying, "Don't listen to old ghosts"? Have a spooky day.